Hey yo, Eddie Hearn has gone out and criticized Deontay Wilder's pay-per-view numbers versus Tyson Fury. He said it was terrible. And we got more on this, stay tuned. Hey yo, E-King's Fight News. And there's the headline of Boxing Scene. Hearn, Wilder Fury pay-per-view number terrible. Absolutely terrible. Terrible numbers. So, I find this very interesting considering it was a financial success. Showtime made a profit. Wilder Fury made a profit. Let's see what he had to say. Hearn's trying to secure a high-stakes unification between Wilder and Joshua. That remains to be seen. This is what he had to say. It's now easier to make Wilder fight versus other circumstances. So if Wilder would have won devastatingly, he would have been a fucking nightmare. Everyone thought he lost, so he drew. And although his stock had gone up because he's basically well known, it's not like this was the phenomenon. It wasn't like a big phenomenon. To do 300,000 buys is terrible. It's terrible. It's absolutely terrible. 300K is abysmal. Dillian White against Joseph Parker did more than 300,000 buys in England. I mean, we're talking about across the US. You can't say it's good. Canelo and Golovkin had just done 1.2 million and they're middleweights. But what Eddie Hearn neglects are the revenue figures. Wilder Fury at a price of $74.99 brought in $24.3 million in pay-per-view revenue, while White Parker, which retailed for a third of that price at £19.95, only brought in $8.1 million in revenue under the same buy number. And Hearn's comparison for Wilder Fury to recent buy figure of Canelo Golovkin is completely irrelevant. Canelo and Golovkin are two of the biggest boxing names in the world, and certainly in the United States. Wilder is taking part in his first pay-per-view event, and Fury was largely unknown in the US. Canelo, in some of his early pay-per-view headliners, where he was the A-side, generated buy numbers that were no better than Wilder Fury and Golovkin in pay-per-view headlines. Against David Lemieux and Daniel Jacobs did less than Wilder Fury. Okay, so shout out to Boxing Scene for keeping it in perspective. Right? Very important. You got to keep it in perspective, guys. Alright, so you guys are going to have to let me know. Is Eddie Hearn hating on Deontay Wilder right now? I mean, it sure does sound like it. You know, he's never held a pay-per-view in the US, so it's pretty easy for him to criticize. I mean, when's the last time he had Carl Froch come over to the US? When's the last time? When's the last time he had Anthony Joshua come over to the US? You know, he keeps talking about it, but he never actually does it, right? And we all know he keeps talking about Big Baby Miller like he's a top draw, and he couldn't even, you know, bring in 1,000 tickets in fucking Kansas City. Or in fucking Wichita, wherever the fuck that fight was. For real. So, obviously, whenever he talks about Joshua versus Big Baby Miller, it's a pile of horse shit. It's what it really is. It's what it really is. Because he knows the only pay-per-view fight that he has that could cross over to the US is only one fight. And he knows it. And he knows exactly what fight that is. It's Deontay Wilder versus Anthony Joshua. Point blank, period. It's Deontay Wilder versus Anthony Joshua. Now, in terms of horrible numbers, hey, boxing scene just put into context, right? There's a difference between being an established pay-per-view guy, like a Canelo Alvarez, like a Floyd Mayweather, like a Miguel Cotto. There's a difference between being an established pay-per-view buy and having your first pay-per-view. You know, it was a big risk on Showtime's part. You had two guys relatively unknown, and guess what? Guess what? They did an incredible live gate in the Staples Center. Biggest numbers since Oscar De La Hoya fought back in the day against, you know, I think he did the Staples Center against that dude Steve Forbes, if I'm not mistaken. If I'm not mistaken, I think that was De La Hoya's last fight in the Staples Center. Now, regardless of that, like I said, it was a financial success. You know, it's not like Deontay Wilder lost money. You know, everybody won, right? Everybody won. The fans won. Fighters won. The networks won. So it's clear hating on Eddie Hearn's part. I mean, if you asked any sensible guy who knows boxing, they would have told you this fight does between 300 and 400,000 pay-per-view buys. Maybe it peaks out at 450 to 500K if they're lucky, right? If you ask any reasonable, knowledgeable boxing fan, they would have told you that. But here comes Eddie Hearn. You know what else? He was also hating on the fact that it was potentially a more entertaining fight than Joshua's last few fights. It was more entertaining than Joshua Povetkin. It was more entertaining than Joshua versus Joseph Parker. And it was more entertaining than Joshua versus Carlos Takam. Right? So Eddie Hearn wanted to start hating on that. Talking about punch stat numbers and shit. Oh, how many punches landed in the first round? Like, fucking get the fuck out of here, man. For real. Like, Eddie Hearn, what the fuck are you trying to say? One, he's trying to say it wasn't an entertaining fight, and now he's hating on the pay-per-view buys. Unbelievable. You know, bring your bitch-ass fighter, AJ. Bring your bitch-ass fighter, Anthony Joshua. Bring him over to the U.S. and see what he draws. Right? Put him in the Barclays Center, like you said you would. Put him up in there against Big Baby Miller and see what that fight draws. See how many pay-per-views that fight does. If you want to talk that shit. Point blank. If you want to talk that shit, put AJ in there with big belly-ass Miller. Big belly Miller. And see what that fight does. Otherwise, shut the fuck up. Because, I mean, how can Eddie Hearn even hate on a guy that's never done a U.S. pay-per-view? How can he hate when he's never even taken the risk himself to put AJ or Carl Froch or George Groves or whoever the fuck on a U.S. pay-per-view? Right? He's never done it before, but he wants to hate on Deontay Wilder. I mean, you guys tell me. You guys tell me. And I'll be the first to say I don't like the idea of Deontay Wilder fighting on Anthony Joshua's date of April 13th. I'll be the first one to say I don't like that idea. But Eddie Hearn's clearly hating here. He's clearly hating, as he always does, whenever Deontay Wilder has a big fight and some big numbers. When he brings in some numbers, you're gonna see the haters coming out of their fucking caves. Anyways, E-Kings Fight News. Smash the like button. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And we're out. Let me know what you guys think in the comments section below. Is Eddie Hearn hating on Deontay Wilder? He says 300,000 buys are terrible. Meanwhile, Gennady Golovkin never did those numbers on his own. Meanwhile, Canelo's first pay-per-view did around the same numbers. Floyd Mayweather's first pay-per-view did around the same numbers. So, you know, he's really comparing apples to fucking grapes and shit, you know. We're talking about Dillian White did more pay-per-view. Get the fuck out of here, man. Alright, E King Fight News. Peace to you and yours, and we're out.